Amber Heard is going to get punished more for shitting literally on Johnny Depp's bed than violent insurrectionists will get for shitting in the U.S. Capitol. And when you mentioned Dust Up, for those of you who don't know, that's in response to the Washington Commanders head coach Jack Del Rio saying on his own to the press in a follow-up to a tweet that the January 6th violent insurrection that left 5 people dead, and which is part of an ongoing coup by the entire right-wing infrastructure to overturn our democracy, was a, quote, dust-up. And then he did a both sides false equivalence and said, well, how come we aren't talking about all these riots and cities burning in response to the overwhelmingly peaceful protests following the murder of George Floyd? It always comes back to racism, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm just confused. Like, Waj, what city
this
is
guarantees,
on
by the way, the Washington Commanders are cursed for the next year. I'm just saying, this again continues the curse.
Is Washington, D.C. on fire right now? Because New York City is not on fire. Is Chicago on fire right now? What is it that they believe by saying that these urban areas, the ones that you know, subsidize their fucking rural lives and their suburban white neighborhoods? What do they think is actually happening in these cities, right? With all the fire and carnage and mayhem.
Black and brown people are living their lives.
Oh, that's right.
And exercising their constitutionally protected rights to peacefully protest against a police force that, instead of serving and protecting them, kills them. And Colin Kaepernick kneeled. It actually goes back to a point I was saying. You know, I started off with a 3-part question to you for us. I'll go to the third question instead of the second question, which is, and again, it's like a beautiful illustration of what you and I were talking about, and Jack Del Rio just gave us a gift. What would have happened if it was a bunch of black and brown folks and Muslim folks who decided, you know what, we're mad as hell and we're not going to take it anymore. We don't like how this election landed. We don't like the fact that Republicans completely dominated the 2022 midterms, and now they have the Senate, now they have the House. Damn it, we're going to get all of our friends and we're going to take weapons and we're going to literally just bum rush the police, kill one. A bunch of others are going to be so traumatized, they're going to kill themselves. We're going to try to illegally go through the doors. Then once we get in, we're going to go shit here and shit there and steal stuff and literally look for the vice president and speaker of the house in order to kill them. And then we're going to be called ordinary citizens and treated like legitimate protesters. Oh, no, of course not. We'd be shot dead. But let's just say Danielle for a second. In the follow-up of Jack Del Rio doing a straight up both sides comparison between a violent insurrection, which you call the dust up, and a bunch of black and brown folks peacefully protesting the murder of George Floyd, what would happen? How would this country respond, top down, if the same thing happened on January 6th, but it was a bunch of black and brown folks, and let's say mostly liberal or Democrats?
The same way that the FBI responded when they got word from an internal report 12 years ago about the rise in white domestic terrorism. They instead would create a task force that would look into black extremism, which isn't a fucking thing. So the reality here is that it isn't just about Republicans doing what they have always done. This country has never had language and policy on the book for white domestic terrorism. And the question is why, right? We have a dedicated museum, I believe that it is in Alabama, that is dedicated to this country's legacy of lynching black people, black children, black women, right? And we've never had a policy to deal with white domestic terrorism. We have had white domestic terrorists blow up churches, kill black children, kill from Emmett Till to the little girls in the church that was blown up
in Alabama.
I mean, you have all of
Buffalo,
these to
2 weeks ago.
To Buffalo a few weeks ago. You have all of these incidences. Too many to actually name, some by the hands of police officers and others by white vigilantes and white mobs. You have entire towns that have been burned down by white domestic terrorists in this country over the course of the last several centuries, and nothing has been done. And the question is, why? Because white people cannot be in charge of policing themselves. And when you create an entire narrative and fictional illustration of exceptionalism, right? When you create this, this benevolence, right? This benevolent idea of the slave master was our first iteration of the gaslight and the anti-CRT, right? And that happened many centuries ago. That story, that narrative, that if we had left these black savages to themselves, then they would have destroyed the nation. Oh, you mean
Birth
build
of a Nation?
It?
Just go watch the movie Birth of a Nation. It's right there. Same old.
Yeah. And so it's hard, I think, Waj, and I ask you because you have children that you are trying to raise in this country, 3 of them that are brown, right? That are Muslim in a country that literally, as your book has stated, hates us, hates them. I just don't know. What are you telling your kids? What are you offering to them if they're coming to you and saying, I'm afraid to go to school. I'm afraid to do this. I'm afraid to do that. Because I don't understand how we're supposed to assuage that fear. I don't know how you do that without lying and telling them that they're safe.
Yeah, it's a tough question because I think it's going to get worse before it gets better. And the reason why I sometimes put myself in this situation and say, what would happen if Muslims would do it is because we survived, we're still surviving the war on terror. And when 19 foreign hijackers brought down the 2 towers, I was told literally that day, and I was all the way in Berkeley. I was a 20-year-old senior at UC Berkeley. I got my first email saying, go back to where you came from. And then I got blamed for the violent actions done by violent people I've never met. Oh, you terrorists, right? So we all get flattened. We're never extolled or praised for our best, the best, right? That's seen as an anomaly. But we all of a sudden become responsible for the worst of our people's interactions, right? All of us are collectively held to blame, especially all Black folks apparently are burning down all the cities and responsible for all the gun violence. And as such, we become a problem. And then as such, when you become a problem, people come up with solutions. And historically, when people are seen as problems, the solutions have been pretty terrible, Danielle. And so the solution when it was Muslim terrorists was first and foremost to name it. Remember, Republicans had to name it. You have to call it Islamic terrorism. Us versus them. Then we had to do a war. We had to friggin' destroy Iraq, which had nothing to do with 9/11.
Nope.
We still destroyed Afghanistan, by the way. Bombed Somalis, bombed Yemenis, right? Bombed a whole bunch of folks that people don't know about. Then that war came home. And even Muslims and those who look Muslimi at home were seen as suspects. The first hate crime after 9/11 was against a Sikh man because bigots are stupid in addition to being violent, and decided to kill this poor gas station owner in Mesa, Arizona, a few days after 9/11. Then you fast forward, you got the Patriot Act, right? All of a sudden you see regulations in airports, right? To this day, we friggin' can't bring a water bottle through security. We still have to check in our shoes, but apparently Republicans have no problems with assault rifles that kill our kids. And then you had Donald Trump, who rode that Islamophobia literally to the presidency by saying, I think Islam hates us, and promising to ban Muslims until we figure out what the hell is happening. And voila, those same forces now have tried to overturn a free and fair election through a January 6th violent insurrection. And now Black and brown kids literally are being hunted. Kyle Rittenhouse brought a gun to a BLM protest. Remember that, guys? It was a BLM protest where he shot and killed 2 white folks. So even white folks aren't safe. Kyle Rittenhouse is a hero. Eddie Gallagher is a hero. Mark McCloskey is a hero. The Proud Boys are heroes. Oath Keepers are heroes. And there's gun violence. And now, even though literally 19 kids are dead, Republicans are like, we love guns more than our kids. So this is a huge way of just trying to, when I answer your question, I'm trying to just connect the dots historically. You know, it's a scary place because when I was growing up, it wasn't this bad, Danielle. Like the worst thing I got called was Apu or Gandhi, which was actually a compliment because I'm like, thank you for calling me Gandhi, a peaceful leader who helped overthrow British imperialism. But after 9/11, I went from Gandhi to becoming Osama. I became a Saddam. And now you have a Republican Party that openly promotes Islamophobia, like openly. In fact, you're rewarded. And in addition to that, we have kids, regardless of their skin color, who have to survive school, Danielle. So you got Islamophobia, white supremacy, climate change, mass shootings, and probably a fascist party that's going to take control in 2022. And so, look, a part of me, I don't like to lie to our kids. I remember when it came to the George Floyd murder, we showed them parts of the video and we sat them down and we explained to them what happened and why it was wrong. And they kind of got it. We explained to them what COVID is. We explained to them why you have to wear a mask. We explained to them why you have to care for people. We explained to them why people sometimes say hateful things, but you shouldn't be that way. And that's all I can do, Danielle. I feel like we have to find an oasis in our lives or neighborhoods or communities or even in the home itself where we give our children the protection that they don't have in an American society that sees them as villains and hates them for simply existing. I don't know what else to do right now.